Let's have a look at the Kipco 1000 Guineas market.
You suggested gelding him.
7-2 maybe. He's not got much of a pedigree, has he? Discourse 6-1, Wading 7-1, 8-1 Lyric of Light, Mashura 12-1, Best Terms and Diala, Lacalina, Kissed, Starscope and Twirl are 16-1, and it is 20-1 bar those. Which is the best Ballydoyle 3-year-old filly? Is it indeed Maybe, or maybe it's Wading? Let's have a look at Wading first, shall we? Winning the Rockfell in a time that was faster than that posted by Parish Hall in the Dewhurst. Ryan Moore rode her on this day, and even the laconic Moore seemed relatively impressed in the immediate aftermath of this performance, Steve.
I thought it's a terrific performance. And there's every reason to think she's going to be better at 3 and better over further. She's by Monsieur, she's out of a dam from the family of See the Stars and Galileo. I mean, she's got everything going. The time here was a good time. She's beaten the rest of her rivals really easily. I mean, she's fascinating for the Guineas. She's fascinating for the Oaks as well, though.
She is, because she's got that Oaks pedigree, as
Exactly.
Steve was saying. But she didn't look short of pace there, Chris.
No, she didn't. I mean, she looks to have it all. I put on my notes that she's the most exciting horse I think that we're pretty much going to look at today. I think she has got it all, and it's backed up in her pedigree because she's from that ridiculous family of Urban Sea, isn't she? Because she's out of Cherry Hinton, who was 5th in an Oaks, and she is a daughter of Urban Sea, who's then related to the likes of See the Stars, Galileo, Black Sound Bellamy. It's just Group 1 winners right down the family, and it's almost every time you see one of these horses from this family, you think, well, they'll win a Group 1 at some point, and they invariably do. She's got a pedigree that suggests she'll get the Oaks, but the visual impression there, that she'll have no problem with the Guineas as well, given that she'll be going up to a mile for the first time, and it's a stiffish mile. So.
But I made the point, Steve, that Maybe was the clubhouse leader, and I think that's a fair comment as well, because she just rattled through pattern races last year in effortless fashion, really.
5 from 5, won the Cheshire, won the Group 1 Moyd Lear. There's lines of form which doesn't put her a million miles in front of the likes of Best Terms and Elusive Kate through Fire Lily, who's quite a consistent and reliable horse. So her form isn't sort of way ahead, but she's got, she was very reliable, she's very good, she's very consistent, she'll guaranteed get the mile, and yeah, if she's the one that comes over, and I suspect one will run in our Guineas, one will probably run the Irish Guineas. That would be what I would imagine would happen. At the moment, the suggestion seems to be that maybe it's more likely to come over, but I don't know if that's true.
Now, Godolphin are quite strong in this division. Discourse, I think, was probably the most impressive of their 2-year-old fillies last year by dint of this performance, and this was in the Sweet Solera Stakes on Newmarket's July course. She beat a deepish field, and she beat them pointless. The filly on the rail is Kinetica, who was a listed winner of the Star Stakes at Sandown, and there's some smart horses in behind. Lily's Angel have been very consistent throughout the season. She's blown them away.
She's a listed winner, isn't she?
Yeah.
Lily's Angel, the second. Travels really well, runs on strongly for hands and heels pressure, and you remember her debut, she'd got up to beat the more experienced and better fancied stablemate Gamalati, so she's 2 from 2 and her form looks rock solid.
It really does. The only problem, Steve, is she had a setback which meant she couldn't run in the fillies mile.
Yeah.
And they're now talking as though she may not get to the Guineas and she might be one for the Oaks, and you'd rather hear a little bit more confidence.
You definitely would. I mean, that's the worry. Early August is when we last saw her. That wasn't the plan, and you've got to take on trust that he comes back as good as ever. All you said about the form, all you said about the style, you can't argue with. And she is a fascinating runner. But it's a large chunk of the season she missed out, and as you say, what word's coming out isn't necessarily persuading you going to run the Guineas.
She's got a transatlantic pedigree. She's by Street Cry, who has had a number of good horses run in Europe. Out of a mare by Dixieland Band, family goes back to Seattle Slough. There are signs that she will get a good bit further than a mile in her pedigree.
She'll get 10 again, won't she? This is going through the Oaks field is fascinating to see the breeding of horses, because there's a lot of horses you don't fancy staying in the race every year. I think she's got a chance of staying. Again, I wouldn't be certain. I mean, I think the Guineas would be the race to go for her if she was fit and well, and then worry about the Oaks afterwards. Personally.
Well, another daughter of Street Cry in the Godolphin care is Lyric of Light, and she did win the fillies mile. Discourse wasn't there, and Lyric of Light was a super substitute. She's not as flashy, but she's tenacious.
Yeah, I thought this was really impressive. I was working this day with Lydia at Newmarket, and the horse in second is Samatar, who gets caught close home. That horse had very much had the run of the race out in front. If you took that tape right back, Lyric of Light is dropped out right in the rear and has to take a fair amount of effort to actually get into a challenging position, and does really well to have its head down on the line at just the right time. Looks like the kind of horse who probably doesn't do a massive amount in front when she gets there, but she should stay a little bit further. The other thing to point out about that run, that was a day at Newmarket when the far side rail did appear to be a little bit of an advantage over coming down the centre of the track.
Often is, isn't it?
Now, I take the fact that the two two-year-old winners of the group races that day both did the same thing in that they quickened down the outside, but I think I'm right in saying that as a general rule, that card, it was an advantage to be on that rail and racing prominently, and that's something that Lyric of Light didn't do on that occasion, was held it right at the back and made her challenge down the centre, and I thought she did very well to win. She's 3 from 3 so far. Her form lines look really solid, and I think she'll stay the Oak Strip well, so I like her.
I thought the dip on fast ground would worry me again. I thought she rolled around a bit. It was pretty quick that day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
I'm not saying she won soft ground. I don't think she'd mind having a little bit more juice. I just thought she looked a bit uncomfortable when she first ran into it.
Samatar, the filly that was second in the Fillies Mile, went on to win a huge pot in a sales race at Newmarket at the back end. Now, the ground was very quick this day, or considerably quicker, and she seemed to handle it okay. She dispatched a reasonable field. Now, there's a horse in this race I like, and it's the runner-up, Steve. But can Samatar, who was experienced as a 2-year-old, do as well at 3?
Well, possibly. That she might start in another valuable sales race this week, and she might take on Bonfire, so that'd be interesting. I think she was a busy girl at 2. She twice finished behind Lyric of Light. She won a lot of money. She was well campaigned to do really well. I think she has to improve to win the Guineas, and there's less obvious reason why she would, given she had plenty of opportunities to show how good she was.
Yeah, just for academic purposes, the filly that was second that day is called Hazel Lavery, trained by Charlie Hill. She's a daughter of excellent art. And Chris, I thought, granted a bit of cut in the ground, having won a maiden at a very fast time at Newbury, she might be quite an interesting proposition. I'm not quite sure where they're planning to start her off. No,
I mean, if they start her off quite soon, then that would be an advantage, given how well the Charlie Hills yard are going at the moment. The maiden that she won at Newbury in a good time, the second horse hasn't come out and run. The third and fourth have disappointed a little bit since, but 2 down the field, the 5th and 7th, have both placed and improved their form since, which you would expect given that they were down the field that day. But it was a good start from Hazel Lavery. That was its second start, and then going in, I always think that when a horse goes in relatively inexperienced to one of those big field races, they learn an awful lot, and sometimes you get very good horses beaten in them as well, just because they're not quite sure what's happening. And you've got like 18, 20 winner fields, haven't you, in those sales races, because everyone's going for the pot, and the best horse doesn't always come out on top, just because, particularly if they're a little bit inexperienced, just because they don't quite know what's going on and they get a little bit claustrophobic, they can meet trouble. It's just a little bit rough sometimes, those races.
OK, let's just remind you of the Guineas betting and the Oaks betting. Let's have a look at both markets. We'll start with the Guineas betting. Maybe 7-2, Discourse 6, Wading 7, 8 Lyric of Light, 12 Mashura. We haven't seen Mashura yet, so we'll have a look at her now, and then we'll show you the Oaks betting. Mashura was a winner on debut at Maison Lafitte in the Prix Imprudence. Chris, what did you make of this performance?
Well, I've not seen it before, Nick. You can't get these French videos online, or I can't. So can I sit and assess as we go?
There she is.
Is that all right? She's had 4 runs in France, I know that much, and she's won 2 of them, been second twice, and her figures look steadily progressive to this stage. She's had a run already this year, which is here, isn't it? Of course I've seen this, I was working. Yes, she was impressive. And this race looked a stronger, it suddenly just clocked me there, he is down a little bit. That was the same day as the French 15 race that we saw earlier on, and that was the fillies version. And the fillies race probably looked to have a little bit more depth overall than the Colts race, I seem to remember thinking.
Yeah, you're seeing all the working here as well, it's great. It's like going behind the scenes at Racing UK, watching us ease our way into the flat season.
Yes.
It's authentic.
I thought she jumped well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there are other players watching the market. I mean, I think Best Terms isn't far behind.
She's only tiny, isn't
She is. That's a doubt, and there's been questions put up about whether she'll stay. I think she's got every chance of staying on pedigree. Personally, I just think in terms of form, she's not a million miles behind the favourite. There's Line Through Fire, Lily, which give her similar claims. Lightning Pearl, who's got ground to make up with wading, but is a good filly in her own right. Diala, who was an impressive winner of a maiden race, and I always think William Haggas horses when they win early in their careers are interesting, because he is definitely a patient trainer. He doesn't train them to be good 2-year-olds. He trains them for their second seasons. So there's plenty of interesting opposition, I think, to the O'Brien team, but they are very strong.